So a 35% increase in public transportation fares for coaster and taxis came into effect earlier this week. The Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students, they say the new fares are a barrier to education. And with us now with more on the topic is Deshaun Cook, president of the union, and Wyoming Hopkins, director of communications. I won't tell you what day I tell them. Morning to you both.
Morning.
Good morning. Mr. President, let me start with you, sir. You have a problem with an increase, period, or is it the 35% that you have a problem with?
Well, we have a problem with the 35% increase, the time of implementation, and just the alternatives that are being presented and how accessible they are to our students.
What are the alternatives you're hearing?
So the alternative is that you can use a JUTC and Montego Bay Metro buses because those have not been increased. But the reality is that tertiary students are not a part of the concession group that gets special fares but by virtue of being a student. And that's what we're asking for right now, for tertiary students to be considered to be a part of that special concession group so that they too can get special fare discounts by virtue of being a student. We have 36 member institutions across all parishes. Montego Bay Metro and JUTC do not cover all routes. And as such, when we're given the option of using JUTC, how about those that are in rural communities? You know, there's a student that I continuously speak of who has reached out to me this morning again to say that, you know, she used to pay $706, now she's paying $1,040 for fare alone. She's also a single mother. Per day.
Per day?
Per day.
$1,040 per day?
$1,040 per day.
And this is a student?
That is a student.
Wow.
Wow. So one of the things, Wyoming, is people are saying, you know, but they do need an increase. Is it that you're saying no increase or that the increase is too much?
It's justifiable to have an increase. There are all areas of the economy that an increase can definitely be acceptable. The issue is not that. The problem is the time of implementation and the amount that is being increased. The issue is you're having an increase taking in effect October 15th, mid-month, and that would have basically been chaotic to anybody who would have planned their month. Worse, a student who is, most students are dependent on their parents, and the parents would have planned their financial layout for the month. Mm-hmm. And that being taken in effect mid-month throws off everything. Mm-hmm. The worst thing to also look at is the fact that a lot of taxis and coaster operators, they will not be working in line with the strict or better yet, recommended amount of increase, because a fare increase from $150 to $180, right, there's not going to be a likelihood of getting back your $20 change. And even though that may seem a small amount, a $20 change is literally...
And if you put that every day.
That's very important. But not only that, a student shared that $20 is what it costs to print 2 pages of information at her school. So not giving back that change, a small amount, a small portion to anybody else's eyes is detrimental to a student who may need it to just complete an assignment, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem is, one, the timely factor, it's way too sudden and short notice, but you have to set up a system in place where even if there is an increase, we can hold the conductors accountable to know that we're going to be getting the right fares that students can properly plan their monies.
Deshaun, tell me what you want.
What we want, one, you know, it would have already been implemented. We're asking for a rollback on the date of effect for the fare increases.
But you can't get that again.
Well, we're still considering. You know, we had a courtesy call with the Minister of Education earlier this week, mm-hmm. who has, you know, promised us that she's going to be facilitating. Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She's going to be having a conversation with the Minister of Transport. We've also sent communication to them as well.
Okay, so what else you want?
We're also asking for tertiary students to be a part of the special concession group that gets discounts on JUTC, Montego Bay Metro buses.
And you have IDs, right?
Once you have valid IDs,
yes.
Okay. That's correct. We're also asking that there be greater measures to hold taxi drivers accountable. You know, just yesterday as well, so a student would have shared from a university that, you know, taxi fare is supposed to be $150. And when she went into that cab, he was asking that she pay $200. Mm-hmm. When they said that they were not paying, then he opted to drive past where they wanted to get that stop. Wow. So we have urged the students to make the reports. We're facilitating that process as well. We've been in contact with the president of that student union. We're making it's now matter of reporting it to the police as well, because she has that license plate number. And these are some of the things that we're talking about. Yes, the taxi fare would have been increased, but what is the right fare that's supposed to be charged? How do you hold taxi drivers accountable to the fares that they're actually supposed to be charging our students?
Boy, it is a tough situation. I'm a little bit surprised that there wasn't more, I would say, stakeholder engagement, because the time frame between the announcement of the increase and then when the increase happened really didn't give much window for people to manipulate their budgets and to do what they have to do. That's one instance that you've shared with us, but what's been the feedback from the students themselves since the announcement? Is this just Deshaun and Mami here saying, this is what we want? Or have you had meetings and had the students speaking up?
We actually have groups. So we represent 36 member institutions across Jamaica, all post-secondary institutions, right? And at the post-secondary level, the expense of going to get an education is already tremendous. So to add the factor in that, you have a fare increase so sudden, we've been getting a lot of feedback from students. We have a group with all the presidents from each union and guild, and they've been sharing, even this morning and yesterday, we had meetings and they've been sharing their feedback, whereas a student who has to travel from UA to Trelawney every single day, the fare increase is so dramatic that she really can't afford food anymore, right? It's those considerations where you may say, oh, it's just at $20 or $30, but what effect does it have on a student's daily life? A student who really, majority of the time, eats ramen and cup soup because that's all their budget can sustain.
You in Mona to Trelawney?
Yes.
Every day?
Every day. And we have, even at the University of Technology, Jamaica, there are a lot of students who commute back and forth from areas such as Westmoreland, Portland, Mandeville.
Every day?
Every day, Hanover. And our other post-secondary institutions like Bethlehem Moravian, and we have Naclovia Polytechnical, their transport system is way more specific to the fact that they're within rural communities. So the transport back and forth is way more difficult, even to manage the cost increase, because who's going to hold those persons accountable?
Yeah. One of the things that a lot of people are saying is that when we think about transportation, because we're in Kingston, we see it in a particular way, but that there are students in rural Jamaica who have to take 2, 3, 4 different types of transportation to get where they want to go. Is it much more difficult on them, an increase like this?
Definitely, because as much as within a Kingston setting, it may move from a 150 to a 180 or 200, and it may not seem so much because you're transporting in one medium back and forth. When you take into consideration the fact that you have to take multiple modes of transport, that increase is catastrophic. Because if you have to move from here to Spanish Town to Clarendon to Mandeville every day or weekly at least, that is a very big dent in your budget. And whereas a student who, majority of them aren't financing themselves. So where do we get that extra money to really enable the student to be better able to sustain themselves? The question is not saying we're against an increase. The problem is the large increase, how we hold taxis and coasters accountable, and the fact that it's so sudden. Right, we need the government to also consider the fact that the Jamaica Urban Transport JUTC is not effective or efficient enough to buffer the impact. They need to look at the timeliness of their bus schedule and the routes that they're offering, because that is not enough to say, let me opt out of taking a taxi or a coaster because I can trust that JUTC has me covered. Simple things like that has to be considered.
Wow, tough for you guys, President. So what do you think? When you look down the road, what do you think will happen?
Well, I would say that we're an extremely hopeful union. We have been working assiduously. We are proposing working groups as well, and just representation of tertiary students right across the board. And that's also something that we proposed to the Minister of Transport in our letter that would have been sent, that there be working groups, because what you don't want is it to be a case where you're reactive to things that are happening. But youth consultation is extremely important. The stakeholders are extremely important, and you can never, think that their voice is not supposed to be considered, because at the end of the day, we are the persons who are feeling the brunt of these decisions that are being made. And as such, we are proposing a working group where the unions, and not just JUTS to be very honest, but we have NSSC and JPA who represent other subgroupings of students, and we're asking for representation to be there on these working groups and other committees.
Awesome.
Well, very impressed with you, boss.
Yes.
Very well represented. I think your group should be very proud of you. I still can't get over Trelawney to Mona every day.
Yes. Because the reality is some of the courses and degrees and majors that are offered at certain campuses may not be offered at the campus in
but how can a student, like, how can you thrive in that? I mean, you're spending probably 6 hours on transport every single day.
The sacrifices they make for higher education.
Right. Well, maybe someone should think about sponsoring that person and they stay on campus. Because that can't make no sense. I mean, by the time you reach home, it's just to go bed and sleep. And then to get up back to come back into Kingston again.
Do them homework on the bus.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys. Hopefully it will work out for everyone.
All right, from the Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students, President Deshaun Cook, and Wyoming Hopkins, Director of Communications.
All right, folks, coming up, decades of service. We will have a chat with SSP Stephanie Lindsay. She's been here a few times for different reasons, but it's our pleasure this morning to speak with her. So come.
I am strong.